Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Joe Rand. I'm very happy to be here. I'm the Chief Creative Officer of Howard Hanna Rand Realty in New York and New Jersey. I'm also the Executive Director of the Broker Public Portal, and I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm very grateful for RISMedia for having me, for exact contact, for sponsoring the session and for providing some of the panelists that are going to be here today. We have a really interesting panel. We're going to be talking about how to keep agents from chasing false promises. It's about recruiting, it's about retention, it's about some of the most important things that brokers do. And so just to let you know, there is a handout that you can get on your panel. There's also a question section and a chat section. If you post a question, we will try to get to it during the hour that we have together. And if you go in the chat, I'll try to wade into the chat periodically if I can find myself, and maybe the panelists will do that as well. But let me I'll just quickly introduce the panelists, and then we're going to get to Shannon. Just our three panelists that we have today. We have Shannon McGee, the Sales Director of Exact Contact. She just waved. We have Ginny Barnhart, the owner of Ownerland Realty in Ohio. And we have Nathan Weinberg, the broker owner of MW Real Estate, Nashville, Tennessee. And what we're going to do is start. Also, if you have any problems, any questions, any difficulties, stay on until the end slide. You'll get your questions answered. If you have tech issues, post them in chat or something, and people will try to get to you who are on the back end of this. Again, we thank Exact Contact for sponsoring. And Shannon, I want to introduce you, Shannon. I wanted to ask you, I know that Ginny and Nathan are both users of your product, and I wanted to know just generally, what are they using and how are they using CRM to help in their recruiting and retention?
Yeah, thanks so much, Joe. And thanks to RIS for having us as the sponsor today and giving me a little little spotlight to chat about what we do and to help our brokers and agents. What Exact Contact helps brokers do is understand what will make their brokerage stand out. So we have conversations and then help them putting in place some systems. So things like Exact Contact CRM, things like Exact Recruiter CRM to help with their recruitment side of things, so that they're able to provide the brokerage the right tools to make them all successful from the top down.
That's great. And let's talk to Ginny and let's talk to Nathan, and we'll get into kind of how they're using the product, but also some of the other things that they do in recruiting and retention. Ginny, I found it really interesting. You've worn a lot of hats in the industry, including as a loan officer, which is an unusual background to get into brokerage. How did that background influence you when you started Ownerland Realty?
As a loan officer, I built my business using a strong CRM platform, and I focused a lot of my marketing on database marketing. And I realized working with real estate agents during that time, they really didn't know how to market. A lot of times they chose their brokerage by who provided the most leads, by the team leaders they may have, and a lot of them would purchase internet leads. And they didn't even have a plan on how to market their business. They just kind of chased leads. So we developed the business model for Ownerland Realty to focus on the agents and help them with their marketing. So, and that was including teaching them how to use a CRM and to utilize a marketing solution that will help them grow their business.
And what were some of the specifics of the things that you did with them?
As far as right now, we do one-on-one marketing coaching with any of our agents that want to build their business using database marketing, because I really believe that, I was able to go through personal experience. My first couple of years in the business, I was closing 20 to 30 transactions per year. By year 5, and I keep telling them that it takes time to grow your business, I was closing over 275 loans per year. And that was solely on CRM, marketing, and database marketing. So I really integrate that in teaching our agents how to use the same, because it's the same. Whether you're the
same, right? It's the same basic idea. Whether you're as a loan officer, whether it's loan officer may be a little more B2B than B2C from that perspective, but certainly from your perspective, from recruiting, it's all B2B the same way it was as a loan officer. That's right. Basically recruiting, your marketing to people that are in the industry with you. Let me now turn, because I have the same sort of question, Nathan. You literally, and I want to hear about this, it's a really interesting part of your background. You literally started your brokerage out of a coffee shop. Like a lot of brokerages in the last 10 or 15 years, they experimented with office layouts that were kind of like coffee shops and evocative of coffee shops. No, you literally had a coffee shop. Tell us about that and how it worked.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for having me. I've been in the real estate world for about 14 years, and my business partner and I had partnered just in real estate. And we were sitting around having one of our weekly meetings where sometimes we talk about a lot and sometimes we don't talk about very much at all. And we had come to the conclusion that it was time for us to open our own brokerage. But none of us really liked the idea of a traditional style of brokerage. We didn't have anything against it. It just wasn't us. And so we were sitting in a coffee shop and one of us said, what if our brokerage was a coffee shop? And we all sort of laughed it off. I didn't sleep at all that night. And the next day I called my business partner earlier than he would have liked. And I said, we need to sit down and talk about this. This is a good idea. And so thus was born this idea of a brokerage that exists within a coffee shop, a space that many brokers and realtors meet their clients for the first time anyways. And it became this very organic conversation around meeting your clients at your coffee shop. And it was a little bit of an inside joke that way. It has turned into something that was bigger than we thought it was going to be. The coffee shop brand has become its own, but the two will always remain connected, and it's been a lot of fun.
That's really interesting. I want to go back. I find the doing something different. You know, so everybody does the same thing. So I am very interested in that kind of the difference in the way that both of you approach the business. One from the loan side, which is really unusual, and the other starting from the hospitality side, which is really unusual. How did those backgrounds give you a different perspective? Either of you, how did those give you a different perspective on being a real estate broker, do you think? What were some of the big principles you got out of that? Ginny or Nathan?
I can get started. I just realized that with most real estate agents, you know, they get through the schooling, they take their test, and then they're just kind of out there. And depending on how much training a broker will give their agents will determine how well they'll do their business, because, you know, there's not much they learn in the classes that really get them prepared for the real world of real estate. And I realized the struggle that my agents were having as a loan officer and how I would actually meet with them and help them with their marketing. And then I soon realized it was kind of a constant that these agents don't have a lot of direction in marketing. And that's where I brought my husband as a real estate agent, and together we decided that I think that the background in lending would be very beneficial to agents in helping them grow their business.
And Nathan, how did hospitality inform how you approached real estate?
Yeah, so I was in the luxury hotel world before I was in real estate. And one of the things that I did in the luxury hotel world was manage the operations component of that. And that was a lot of training around interacting with customers and guests. And that's not a trait. The ability to do that well is not something that everybody has. That's okay. And so my approach to real estate has always been that there are a million different ways to sort of skin that cat, right? And because we have a background in reading people in the hospitality world and being proactive and anticipating the needs of a guest, we can apply those same principles in real estate as well. And there isn't a one-size-fits-all strategy in real estate. And because we're attuned to the needs of somebody, we're more agile and capable of helping them achieve success in their home ownership goals.
Now, Shannon, I wanted to, we skipped through a couple of slides that I have in the slide deck here that I thought you wanted to kind of go over. Do you want to, can we go back to those? This pie graph, for example, I don't know if there was something you wanted to make sure we talked about today. Could you tell us what this is all about?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll actually tie it back to the other slide, and then we can move on from from the slides. With things like the Exact Contact Brokerage Program, we provide brokerages with some of those key tools. So like like Ginny and Nathan are describing, being able to give their agents the training and the tools and the ability to market their business and stand out. Brokerages also have to stand out, and they have to have the right tools in place to do that. So that's where the Exact Contact brokerage program comes in. And this actually, I pulled it from a brokerage study that asked a series of brokers specifically about CRM and how it's helped their brokerage and what their sort of expectations were versus what actually happened. And as you can see off to the right-hand side, there's 60% just by providing a CRM, it helped retain more of the agents within their brokerage. And I thought that really stuck to the topic today with being able to give agents the tools they need and the training they need and the coaching they need. One of those, something so simple as CRM can actually help retain those top agents in your brokerage.
Yeah, it certainly is one of the fundamental, it's one of the fundamental tools that agents have to use. And since talking about brokerage, the brokers really have to use. And so it's an indispensable part. It's like literally a carpenter using a hammer. A CRM is one of the most fundamental things that we have to talk about. Now, this is I thought this was at the end, but make sure you talk about this. Let's get this out in front here that we can talk about this for a second, the special offer here. Because I know we were going to mention at the end, Shannon. You see it up on the screen?
So Exact Contact has two versions of CRM. We have the agent version of the CRM that helps the agents with their marketing and their organization and their business. And we have the same product, but on the recruiting side. So for the brokers to be able to manage their recruitment and help them with their marketing for different recruits. And my background actually is in recruitment prior to joining Exact Contact. So I can understand the struggle of just being able to keep track of all of those potential people that that need to join your brokerage, but they need to but they just need that consistent communication to remind them why, right? Because it's anything in recruiting, it's sort of like selling your house. It's never really no. It's just not today. So the agents just need to keep hearing from you. So as part of our webinar offer today, we're doing an extended free trial on the real estate recruiting CRM.
So make sure you get that code down, and if you want to check it out, and we'll put it up at the very end as well.
Appreciate it.
Let's talk. Let's go. I want to go back to when you started your brokerage, because both of you started brokerages, and really the last, I think, 10 years for you, Ginny, and more recent than 15 years for you, and more recent for Nathan. What were some of the big decisions that you made that you look back that define the kind of brokerage that you had? What were some of the big things that you did?
One of the things we did is we're a full service brokerage, but we used the virtual concept, and that was not very popular back 15 years ago. It's very popular today. We have a lot of brokerages that are kind of beginning in that platform, but we have the history, which is really good. We have 15 years of growing this concept. We grew very, we grew. We didn't want to grow fast. We wanted to grow with momentum, and I believe that's what we did. Again, we started out with 4 or 5 agents in 2007, and today we're almost 350. In fact, we might be over 350 now. So that was, and I think that people are realizing that the virtual concept works. They can work from home. They use us when they need us, and they're able to spend their time and energy growing their business. And I think that virtual concept gives them that opportunity.
Well, certainly, everyone's needed to be virtual the last 2 years. That's really been that. Brokers that have been strong on the virtual offerings have, I think, been able to, really bring value in the market that we've been in for the last 2 years. Nathan, what were some of the big decisions you made? How did because every brokerage, when you're starting it, you make certain decisions that define what you're going to be. What were some of those decisions, and how do they play out?
Yeah, I mean, the coffee concept is one, right? It was a disruptor, but that wasn't what we wanted to have define us. We were very specific about wanting to build a brokerage that served what we believed the future of Nashville to look like, and we thought the future of Nashville looked a lot less like me, and a lot more colorful and diverse, and we wanted our agents to be reflective of that. I would say that we've been 50% successful in achieving that in our recruitment strategy, but it doesn't change the goal. We think that the people that are buying houses are different than we are and than our parents were. And because of that, we think that the strategy around buying houses and the motives around buying houses have changed, and we can't work off of the same playbook anymore. And so we're very, very careful about who joins MW Real Estate. That doesn't mean that we are keeping people from us, but we want the right personalities in place to help the future of Nashville. And so that's made our brokerage a lot of fun. We've got a lot of people with tattoos and purple hair, and they stay up till 5 in the morning, and then they start their workday at 3 p.m. And that's okay, because it's reflective of the place that we live in. And I think that was remarkable. There's not a lot of clock watching, and there's not a lot of show me the calls you made last week. That's not important to us. What's important to us is that those personalities are jiving with the clients that they're serving.
And how do you set up? I mean, we'll talk about recruiting. How do you recruit to such a specific type of message that you're, in your programs? What are some of the processes you go through when you're trying to attract people to the company? Either of you. You can start with Nathan.
Yeah.
You were just on.
I think that that's a really challenging question. And I think the answer is there is no specific way. There's not a script when it comes to recruiting. Recruiting is about the individual that we're sitting in front of, making sure that they're doing more of the talking than we are. Many, many moons ago, when I was selling supplemental insurance in Idaho, and that was awful, I wouldn't recommend it to anybody.
You recommend Ohio. Ohio's a wonderful state, as Ginny will tell you. You mean selling reinsurance. You
Idaho,
that.
Which is also a lovely state. But the job was awful. The state was wonderful. But I did get a nugget of something from a sales manager. And that was, if you're talking, you're selling. If they're talking, they're buying. And so we've spent a lot of time training our agents, and then me training myself to spend more time listening to the person across the table than doing much talking. I get a lot of my playbook around recruitment from what they're telling me. And so if they're talking to me about a culture that doesn't jive well with them, then that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about culture. If they're talking about tools that don't work well or do work well, then we're going to talk about the tools that don't and do work well. And sort of bringing it all back to this exact contact piece, I've been at a lot of brokerages, and all of those brokerages have offered me a bevy of tools. And most of those tools were useless to me. And because of that, when we decided what tools we were going to make available to our agents at the brokerage, we thought less about making sure they had lots of options, and instead about making sure that the options that were available to them were in fact accessible options, were tools that they would actually use. And a CRM is one that's there, and Exact does a good job with that.
Ginny, go ahead.
Yeah, my approach is a little bit more, it's a little different. We use continuing education and networking. I still like person-to-person contact, which we made it a little harder over the last 2 years. But we do focus, as Nathan said, we focus on getting to know and just building relationships with agents outside of our brokerages, and trying to just kind of listen to what maybe some challenges they're having, maybe things that help us create better systems. And I feel like sometimes agents don't feel like they're being heard by their brokerages. So that's one of the things that we try to we just try to make a difference in our company. Our philosophy is agents first, and we treat our agents as our clients, and we recruit that way as well. And I feel that most of the times people are missing that in the world of, I don't know, just everyone's just trying to, they're so focused on, building their business through leads. And I feel like if you can change their approach to more of what Exact Contact provides as a marketing solution, you can find that you can help them grow, and you can teach them how to grow their business organically. That is something that is new to them. They don't hear that very often in their recruiting. So it seems to be it just seems to be a strong point that a lot of our agents feel is missing.
All right, so let me drill down into that. So we'll talk, we'll talk about how you recruit, like the tools you use to recruit. But I think you're both kind of indicating that having the CRM itself is a draw. That's one of the things that agents are really attracted to. But how specifically, what are you showing them to do? Because CRM, I mean, listen, CRM is a fairly generic tool. There's lots of different types out there. My understanding is that what you're doing is a little bit unusual and a little bit special in how your agents are able to wield it and how you're teaching them to wield it. So let's drill down into that. Like, what are some of the specific things you're able to do that you think differentiates you from the competition when you're recruiting?
When I talk about using the CRM, I always, I feel like sometimes when you go forward with just real estate talk, that it shuts down people. So I have them find subjects that are not always real estate related, but things that could be helpful to their audience, and try to build that into their marketing. And it kind of helps them build relationships with their clients before their clients. It's kind of like what Shannon says, it's not a no, it's a maybe later kind of thing. So we want to make sure that our agents are in place when that maybe later time comes in. And we also help them focus on, and the biggest thing with the CRM is building the database. I'm telling you, that is probably the hardest thing that we ask agents to do. So we actually are very proactive in helping them build that database. We give them memory joggers. We show them how to, how to put everybody in their database, even if they don't think that they would be interested in real estate later. So the goal is really relationship building and using your CRM to build those relationships, not just look for real estate leads.
Interesting. Nathan, same question.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying listening to Jenny talk about this. She's got even more experience than I do. So I would say that when it comes to the use of the CRM, I'm asking my agents to identify the pain points in their business. And so I know the things that I'm good and bad at, and I can identify the components of the CRM that will prop up the things that I'm not good at. But those aren't the same pain points that all of my agents have. And so when we sit down at the beginning of the year, and we're actually involved in this exercise right now, and we set goals, we talk about what are the things that are keeping you from having success or accelerating your referral-based business, and how can we achieve that through the tools that we have or through some generic tool that exists out there. And so as an example, one of my pain points is the follow-up after the sale. I've never been good at it. It's something that I'm just terrible at. And so there are poor clients out there that never hear from Nathan again. Maybe they didn't want to hear from me again. That's okay. But by and large, I would like to hear from them again. And so I think to myself, well, what are ways that I can stay in touch without actually having to stay in touch? And CRMs, this one in particular, does a really good job of gathering crucial or critical information on the front end, and then giving us the ability to automate the way that we reach out to people and the cadence at which we reach out to people. So that solves a significant pain point for me. For other people, it's about social media. And so there are agents in our firm that pay to use the social features of Exact Contact. And the other component of this is websites. So some people feel like their website is a low point for them, and Exact offers a solution for that. So we try to indicate, we try to use all the features in Exact Contact for the benefit of that specific agent based on their pain points.
When you talk about, I liked what you said about I want to drill down a little bit more into that, about the cadence and how it grabs information and then is able to tailor kind of your follow-up program to the information that you've gathered as part of your, you're setting up the system. So give me an example of like the kind of things it does. I think we benefit from hearing the specifics of this.
Yeah. So there's the basics: identifying birth dates, anniversaries, move-in dates. So we can set reminders around when did somebody move into their house? When did you close? There's a component that I love in this CRM that allows you to upload documents. So one of the things I've been training our agents to do is to upload copies of the title policies and inspection reports, and using those as reminders to reach out to clients a year later and say, hey, it's been a year, hope you're loving your house. Here are the things in your inspection report that we were going to keep an eye on. And it's just a little thing that those people have long since thrown that report away, but that you have it makes it special, makes you special to them, makes you valuable to them. There are other pieces of this, which is, remembering a dog's name, or remembering that somebody is going to graduate in a specific time period. There's just all of these abilities to set calendar entries around specific and meaningful dates in people's lives. I have multi-generational clients at this point, and had I been using a CRM prior, I would have been much more capable of tracking when someone was graduating from high school and law school and then needed to buy a house after that. And so a CRM creates the automation necessary to be successful with that kind of follow-up, I think.
Yeah, I agree with Nathan. And another thing that they do well is the newsletters. CRMs, I've tested so many CRMs, and building a CRM and having to create content for a newsletter is horrible. I hate that part of it. And Exact has a way of, they do that automatically, which is awesome. And the reason why that's important is because my husband, even, he as a partner in Ownerland, he doesn't do a lot of marketing for personal business. So I use his account as the guinea pig for everything I do. So he literally just sets it and forgets it. And he still gets referrals all the time. And I do believe it is, it's a perfect CRM for people that want to dig in and use it to its complete, use all the tools that's in there. But if they only want to set it and forget it, they can with this program. And I think that's the biggest pool that I feel Exact Contact has, and that is I think the newsletters are by far the best.
And I'm hearing the success stories that come out of it.
Yeah, it's not all about
the tool, right? We're the tool behind it,
right.
But we're putting the tool into the hands of brokers that can then empower their agents with the tools and best practices to ultimately build their business.
Yes, and the cool thing about their newsletters, it's not all just about, buying a home. They have articles in there that are sometimes around tax time. It's usually tax, information in there. During the springtime, they'll talk about, getting your yards ready. So it's information that they can use, and then they'll have a little plug about real estate. But again, it's a very, very good tool that Exact offers in their CRM.
That's great. I have a question. I have a couple of questions here that have set up in the chat. Anyone that wants to post a question, there's a question section. If you post in the chat, I'll also be able to see it. And we'll try to bring in some of these as we go through. But one of them, it's a good follow-up, I think, for Nathan, because you mentioned the pain points and like how you're able to address some of those pain points with the system. Is that through automation, or is that through that you train the agents how to do it, or is it some combination of both? How much of this gets automated? How much of it requires human intervention?
Well, we work in a business that, in my humble opinion, should never be automated, or at least entirely automated. And so we do a lot of training around agents, making sure that they're having human touches invested or involved in all of these things. But the training around the use of the CRM is about figuring out the things that, so I think maybe it's better just describe it. So when you enter a contact in your CRM, the pieces of information that you put into that contact are the pieces of information that you have to be creative about how you create automation or cadence around. And so what information you put in there is more important than anything else. And so a lot of people will say, okay, well, their name and their phone number and their email address is in there. That's good enough. No, it's not. You can get that out of your email platform. That's no problem. What is valuable in there is, where do they work? When did they buy their house? When did they move into their house? Those two things aren't always the same. What are the ages and birthdays of the people in their household? What are their hobbies? What are the tools and things that are of interest to them? Because you can then categorize those people based on interests, jobs, all of those things, and you can start now tracking the origins of your business. That's important. We talk a lot about analytics and reporting at the end of the year. And if we're talking about automation, I love analytics from an automated perspective. I think it's great to have a machine go out and tell me, hey, your biggest successes come from, you know, Johnson & Johnson or something like that, right? It's great for someone to be able to tell me that without me having to spend a lot of time figuring it out. That's what the CRM does for me. And I think that the pain points for each agent usually are around, I forgot such and such. The whole point of CRM is to eliminate the I forgot.
You know, we've talked about how you're both using the CRM from a perspective of, hey, recruit, or hey, agent, I'm trying to retain. Look at this cool tool. Here's how you can use it. And if you train it up and you make it part of your value proposition, it can be very effective. I think the next question is, what are you doing with CRM as on your own for the actual recruiting process? Not as a lure, as a tool, but what are you doing, like actually, how are you using yourself as a broker to recruit agents? Ginny or Nathan? Ginny, since we haven't heard from you in a few minutes. Ginny, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, we do a monthly email recruiting every month, and then I followed up with a second one, you know, inviting them to meet for coffee. And believe it or not, that just being consistent, we've been doing that for 15 years. And that consistency has been a crucial part of our recruiting. You know, and I think that that is the biggest thing with CRMs. It's not how wonderful a CRM is, it's that you use it. And in order for me to tell our agents or advise our agents to use it, I want to make sure I'm using the same things. I'm able to use my own experiences recruiting and show them how you can, you just got to be patient. You have to keep doing it. Don't stop, because you know, that's where, you know, things start to fail, is when you stop using it. So that is typically what I do when it comes to the CRM. I do the monthly, I use it for the continuing education. We do a lot of events. Any event that we do for our agents, we invite the entire local area real estate agents. So I use the CRM to invite people to those events as well. So we use it primarily for all of our communication externally.
And Nathan?
Yeah, same here. I also use it to track communications in totality. So you have the ability to basically send or BCC your emails to your CRM. And that way I have email correspondence, and I can track it, and I can track conversations. So if I'm actively pursuing 6 different people to recruit, or 10 or 20 different people to recruit, it's not, because we're talking about very similar things all the time in those recruiting meetings, it's not unheard of for me to forget who's who. And so to be able to go back in and look at that string of emails without having to search through my actual email program, you can look at it on a contact basis and say, okay, we talked about this on this date. I'm going to repeat that, or I'm not going to repeat that. That's been really useful.
And who's doing most of this? One of the questions we got from Jillian Young was, do you have a specific position that handles this training for the agents and handles some of this technology for you? Are you doing it yourself? Is it something that you do through the vendors themselves? How are you doing that?
Right now, I'm doing it all myself. So, and it's, yeah, but my goal is to do more recording of these trainings, and then I'll, you know, that way it'll take some of the hands-on out of it, you know, to where it can free me up to do other things. But yeah, I handle it myself.
Yeah, I do a lot of it myself. We do have an office manager who I've delegated the responsibility of inputting contacts into everyone's CRM when closings come through. So it's one of the things we do from a retention standpoint, is we update people's CRMs for them. The basic information, they have to go in and put the other stuff in there. And then
Yeah.
I this last year hired a director of agent development, and their job is to make sure that people understand the tools that are available to them, and then help them with individual needs as it relates to building their own brand.
Nice, nice. The what are some of the, you know, what I'll ask it to you two different ways. What are some of you think the most creative things that you're doing, and what are the biggest mistakes you see other people doing? Actually, let me throw something to Shannon. Shannon, what do you see is that when you see broker, Ginny and Nathan are both using your product and they're both using it well. What are the ways in which you see people who have been less successful? What mistakes have they made when they've used the products?
It's not necessarily just using the product. I've got a 8-year career before Exact Contact in recruitment, and it's just like the brokers are telling the agents to keep following up with your prospects, keep following up with your past clients. Don't lose track of anybody, don't let them lose track of you. It's the same thing goes on the recruitment side, right? If you're not creating that consistency and creating, as Ginny said, like something that's whether it's automated or whether you're doing it actively, your coffee invites. If you don't send the coffee invite, you're not going to get a coffee meeting. So just being consistent and being inconsistent is really one of the biggest mistakes I see from my side of it. Some cool things that I've seen brokers doing, whether it's it's part of like providing different tools for their agents through offering a CRM or website product, and as Nathan just said, having somebody on your team actually put the information in there for them. Huge value add, obviously. That you're not just saying, okay, hey agent, here's a CRM, go. That the brokers are really standing behind it. So when you implement a CRM for the brokerage, they're able to really stand behind it and put it into your training program, put it into the day-to-day in the office. And on the Exact Recruiter side, some of the most successful brokers that I've seen using CRM are doing more than just a monthly email newsletter, right? And that's sort of, I guess, a common mistake too, is doing just one thing and letting it do the same thing over and over and over again. There's some cool programs that I've seen other brokers running with things like a Monday motivation email. And every Monday, doesn't matter who the person is, if they haven't unsubscribed from my emails, they're getting a Monday motivation email. And it's not just going to your prospects, it's also going to the agents within the brokerage. So you're motivating the agents that have already joined you, keeping them engaged. And then they're also sending that Monday motivation out to agents that might need a little push. And if their broker's not doing it, then they're that much more likely to move.
And what Nathan, Ginny, what do you see as other brokers in your market, or or a mistake you've made that you learned from? What's some of the big mistakes that you've seen?
I think the biggest is just always talking real estate or making your message just about all about the broker. And I feel like if I try to make sure that the messages going out are about the agents, focusing on their needs, I try to do, hey, kind of like the Motivation Monday, I try to make sure there's tools in there that they can use in their current business, whether they're with Ownerland or not. And that seems to be something that I've actually did learn, but I learned from that mistake. I was making it all about Ownerland and why Ownerland's so awesome and why it's the best place to be. And I kind of changed that message to be more about, hey, agents, are you having issues here? Do you have trouble here? Is growing your business been a challenge for you in your real estate career? So I've been making it more about them. And I feel like that has become more and more receptive, and I get more positive responses from that.
Nathan?
Yeah, I think that one of the biggest mistakes that I watch people make all the time is letting a conversation become about money. And if we're really in this for a career, money's obviously what we need to live, but there's more to it. I like to go home at the end of the day not feeling drained. And so I really want to hear more about what do they do? What do they like to do with their families? What do they do on the weekends? What kind of music do they like? Those are important conversations in recruiting, because it gives us an opportunity to have a conversation that's less about me selling and more about us just becoming close. And so I think that changing the conversation to be more about developing a relationship is valuable. If I am in that meeting and I can't develop a relationship with that agent that I'm recruiting, I think there's a pretty good chance that maybe they have trouble developing relationships outside too. And so is that really the kind of agent that I want to have working at MW?
That's fair. One thing I want to contribute that I find the biggest mistake when people start using a CRM is that I mean, I know that I'm sure that your program has it, the import feature, because everyone does, but I find that unless you're moving something that was really well maintained, that you're going to import it, just start from scratch. I mean, these people that they try to import a database that they've got in Excel they've been keeping for 10 years. There are dead people on that list. There are people that have moved. There are people that they've actually moved, that they've helped them buy a new house, but the old address is still in there because they never updated it. You are so much better off just saying, okay, rather than try to import 800, like I have 800 contacts, I don't want to lose my 800 contacts. Like you have 800 pieces of garbage is what you have. Start with 0 and then build up from Anthony Aardvark to, Alice Admonson and all the way through, and put good data into that CRM. I see people, and they never maintain it. That's they build and they don't maintain it. Same thing with recruiting agents, whatever. The database has to be clean. It's only as good as the information you put in it, right?
Yeah.
That is
And
correct.
that's a question I often get asked from brokers is do we provide them with a list of contacts for recruiting? And we don't. And we'll have brokers that say, well, how do I get a list of contacts? Like the same way you tell your agents to get a list of contacts, go out and talk to the real estate agents and talk to your agents every single day. And then start building a list from there. It's going to be much more valuable list than a cold list that you purchased or downloaded from the MLS and just start sort of cold emailing to and hoping something sticks. So just like you said, Joe, very valuable in building that list organically, whether it's from a recruiting standpoint or whether it's teaching the agents how to build their own database.
Right, and that's
we
what
got
we
a good question. Good.
Oh, sorry. That's the reason why we start ours with a memory jogger type thing. I mean, you train them how to build their list because I think that's the hardest. They think they need to build it with people like just clients. They don't realize they can. They need to put everybody they know. Anyone that knows their name needs to be in there. So.
I got a good question from Choriza. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. How do you get your agents to go in and implement it? How do you, my point I just made was that if you put in garbage contacts and you just import garbage contacts, because your personal database, which you built over time, is no good. You get people to the point that they actually put in good contacts, they're clean. How do you keep on them? How do you incentivize them to keep using it correctly, and how do you do that yourself? How do you stay on top of yourself that you don't get lazy and let it lapse and get out of date? How do you do that? How do you do that for the agents? How do you do it for yourself?
Well, the cool thing about Exact is that it's basically your business in a system. So, I mean, you're able to track your business that you're working in now, currently working, business that you closed. So I just tell everybody, hey, when you're ready to work real estate, you just open up your CRM and you work within that. And that way it becomes, I mean, that's what I learned as a loan officer. That was what I worked in, is my CRM. I did everything in it. And it is hard to change that culture with a lot of our real estate agents. I'm not going to lie and say that everyone just gets on board and everyone does everything that I suggest, because they don't. But the ones that really want to make a difference in their business and they want to build it strong, they're the ones that typically are about learning everything they can and taking my experience, because that's what I try to use. I use my experience. It's a lot easier when I've lived it and I'm trying to show agents how to grow their business than someone that, isn't doing it and not using a CRM to do the same thing. So I feel that has helped us a lot in our training.
I think it's about removing barriers. And so, one of those is obvious, which is we enter people's data for them into the CRM. So nobody's having to start it, right? Like all they have to do now is update it. Nobody's required to use it. If you don't want to use it, if you've got another system, that's fine. It's totally okay. I'm not, I really don't want to believe that I've got the solution to everything. But because this is such a good one, most people are adopting it, which is great. I think they get in there and they see what Ginny described, which is that it's not just a relationship manager, it's truly a business pipeline manager. And so the ability to, in fact, there is a tab that's business pipeline. And so it allows you to track business in a really meaningful way. People love seeing their own successes. And so the ability to track somebody's progress from prospect to sale and then again to referral, I think is really rewarding. And so you don't have to incentivize people to do it.
Mhm.
They're creating their own incentives by using the product
Yeah.
correctly.
Let me another question we got from the audience, Dave King. What are some of the reasons that when you lose agents, what are some of the things that you learn from that you've learned from that experience that relates to this?
Man, I've learned so many. The agents that I've lost, I feel lucky that it hasn't been a lot. And we're talking about attrition, so it's important that we talk about this. The agents that I've lost, I can pretty directly correlate to me being lazy. And so when I stopped following my own advice and really focused on, hey, you're a top producer, I just need to have you over here because you produce a lot. Those are the agents that really predictably leave. Because we haven't developed any relationship. They have no tie to me at all. It's easy for them to just say no and leave. And so developing and building a relationship with my agents, I think, is the most important thing to retention. So we spend a lot of time analyzing that. We debrief every time an agent leaves. I do exit interviews. So what was it? Like, what made you leave? Sometimes I know the answer. More often than not, I don't. And so I'm surprised. And it's important for me to understand what I did or didn't do, and they're not always honest, but I can usually get to pretty close to the bottom of it. So I think it's really important to analyze and ask those questions.
Yep. Jenny?
I would say that most people that have left us, typically it was a money thing. And a lot of times that was fine with us. I mean, it had nothing to do with what we provided them. It was just that they were being promised leads or something that, something I don't always agree with buying leads. It's not part of it's just not part of how Underland is building their marketing is around buying leads. We focus primarily on database marketing and CRM and using those marketing platforms. So I feel like most of the times it's people that are not really, they're just more in it for the sale, because you're gonna have agents that are just in it to make a sale and they're not really looking to grow. They look at it more of as a job. As Shannon says, that people ask her, do I get a contact list? I mean, we have agents that come in and say, well, do I get a client list? And we're like, no, we don't have, client list to hand you. You have to grow it yourself. So I think that is, you get a lot of people coming into the real estate world, right? We kind of look at how they came in. Sometimes they came in because they experienced their own home buying experience, and they thought, hey, I could do this. And so they come in and they think that it's going to be easy to grow their business. And when they realize that there's a lot of work in growing that, it doesn't seem to be what fits their image. And those are usually where we have people leave, when they realize that they have to work for their leads with our company, and we don't provide them.
Yeah, so neither of you, I think, have, because there's a question we've gotten from Jesse Storm, and Jesse has been asking a couple of questions. I want to make sure I get to at least one of them. But he asked about about if you're not providing leads, what are you, neither of you are doing, from that perspective, it's more teaching them how to generate for themselves by using tools like CRM to reach out to their clients and things like that and do follow-up and whatnot. That's what I figured. The other question Jesse had, which I was curious about, and Shannon might be able to shed light on this, is how do you scale this up? I mean, a lot of this seems to be very on the recruiting side can be how do you, if you have a larger company, I mean, Ginny's got a big company, but most of it's working virtual. So it's, I think, a different thing than if you've got a big geographical spread and you've got offices everywhere and there are different markets, you're trying to recruit in different markets. How well does this scale up to that kind of situation? Shannon?
If you're talking about like the recruiting CRM and being able to target different agents in different markets, I think Nathan mentioned it earlier, being able to just categorize the contacts. So being able to pull up, all the contacts, all of your agents that you want to recruit for Cincinnati specifically, and being able to reach out to them, or being able to pull up, just teams if you're trying to recruit some teams to the brokerage.
Mhm.
So being able to target that messaging, if you are sending out sort of more of those mass communications, or if you're trying to make phone calls and invite people for coffee, that you're targeting based on how you've categorized it in the CRM. So again, any system is as good as what you put into it.
And one of the things that I do with our marketing, like I said, we do a monthly marketing, and the people that I actually reach out the second time are people that have interacted with the email that's the cool thing, is you have reporting with exact. So you can kind of check who's clicked, who's opened them up, and those are the ones I put in I tag them, and then I will send to them an invitation to coffee. So it's not just anybody. It is specific to people that are actually interacting with what I'm doing.
So this, I mean, I would imagine that it's the kind of situation that would scale up. We're coming on it. We're running out of time. I did have some of the questions I want to make sure we got to that that I thought through. If you could start just all over again, start from scratch, knowing what you know now, would you have done anything differently about the way you started your brokerage?
Oh, so many things. Yeah, I think that, anybody who doesn't make mistakes when they're getting started, boy, I'd love to sit down and know, how they did that. You make tons of mistakes. That's how you learn. And if you're afraid of making mistakes, you're not an entrepreneur. That is the common thread. Lack of fear of failure. No one likes to fail, but you shouldn't be afraid of it. The person that learns to ski and doesn't fall down is going to perpetually be skiing the bunny slope. And so we want to get to the black diamonds. That's the exciting stuff. And so, you have to fall down. You got to take bold risks. And when they fail, you have to celebrate the failure and the things that you learned. And if you don't do that, then you're doomed to repeat it over and over again. That's no fun. So there's no specific example. I made every mistake there is. That's what it is. And if you didn't when you started your brokerage, then good for you. You're gonna make it some point. That's what I'd say about that.
And yeah, one of the mistakes that I made, I said earlier, is that I focused the recruiting message on money that they can make with Ownerland, and why Ownerland is the best and all that. So when I started to change the message to be more about the agent, that's when I started to see a lot more reception from my audience. So if I could do it all over again, I probably would have bypassed that whole first 5 years of just talking about Ownerland, and would have changed my message at the beginning.
Interesting. We got one last question that I'm gonna have time to get to. Jamie Mays asked, which I think is a good capper question. All right, I'm gonna ask it this way. I'm sitting I'm sitting down with you. You got through to me with one of your emails, and you're now pitching me, and I ask you point blank, what makes you, and I want to hear this in 30 seconds or less, because I don't have a lot of time left on the webinar. What makes you different, Ginny, from every other broker that I should come work with you?
I would say that our philosophy is that agents come first, and we focus on that. We focus on our business model is basically based on our agents' needs. How we try to work individually with each agent on creating their business model that's unique to them. And I think that is something that's a lot different than any other company, because most companies are working on building their brand. And the way we look at it is, every agent is their own, they're independent, and they are a business owner. And that's what we focus on. And I believe that sets us apart.
Nathan, you got a little more time to think than Ginny did. I hit Ginny on the spot.
It didn't make it any easier. I love an elevator pitch. I think that I'm going to go back to something that Ginny said. we're not so focused on who you decide to work with. We are 100% focused on you because you're our client. And so what makes us different? We've got all the same tools. Everyone's working with the same quiver of arrows. What's most important is how you use them and how we can help you be the most effective at using them. So rather than me tell you what it is great about us, I'd love to hear you tell us what are the things that are meaningful to you and what are the things that make it important for you or what are the things that make it hard for you to make decisions about where you're going to land your license. And let's talk about how MW can be the place for you to do that.
Excellent. Well, those are good cappers for the conversations. I think I'll let that be your takeaway for the afternoon, unless you have something specific you want to add. Is there anything I've missed that you want to make sure you drill home to everybody? Now, all right. So I just want to go back, Shannon. Here's the offer again. Was there anything else that people wanted to let the audience know about besides this? Anything else from you, Shannon, besides what we have up on the screen?
I mean, that's the special offer specifically for the Exact Recruiter product with just the extended 2-month free trial. If anybody is looking for a CRM like Exact Contact to roll out at the brokerage level, give us a shout. We'd love to give you a demo of the system and see if it's the right fit.
Okay. And anything from you, Jenny or Nathan?
No, thank you for having me. I was delighted to learn a little bit from y'all. And retention's an important component. My dog has decided to make an appearance here, so I apologize.
Your dog has been great the whole time. I've been watching that dog behind you. I can say, give the dog a pet. Come on, bring him up. Come on.
He's got a lot to say about retention, so.
Yeah.
I can't let my 3 dogs in this room, or else they will, through this window behind me, they will bark at everything that goes by and disrupt the class, disrupt the webinar. So your dog was very well behaved. Thank him or her for us. Shannon, thank you for sponsoring. Thank you to RIS for having us. Thank you for everybody who attended. Particularly my thanks to Nathan and Jenny for being such engaging and knowledgeable panelists. I hope you all enjoyed it. My stuff is up there, but you can always find me at joerand.com or on Facebook or any of the other places. I'm on every possible social media site, as I'm sure all of you are as well. My friends, be healthy, stay safe, stay warm for those of you in the northern climate like I am. Also, yes, let me just put this up. Last point. A video of the webinar will be uploaded. We'll email a link later. So if you register, you get an email with a link to the webinars. This will live forever, including the final moment where we got the cameo from the dog. Thank you all so much. Have a great day. And we'll see you all. I guess they do these webinars every couple of weeks. So I'm sure there'll be one coming up on the pike. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yes.